I am Hallie Crawford, certified career coach, and I'm the founder of my own company. I'm very fortunate for that. Create Your Career Path. And we are going to be talking today about how to do a better job of keeping your career resolutions in this next year. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday and are looking forward to the new year. It's obviously crazy, kind of unsettling times. I've got a few family members who have come down with the Omicron variant of the virus. Luckily, it does seem to be a little bit more mild, but there's just a lot going on for everyone here. So really appreciate your time today and participating and attending. As a quick reminder, we are going to be sharing the recording with you automatically when we're done today. So you will have a link to go ahead and download that. And let's go ahead and dive in. So here's the deal, and the reason why we need to talk about career resolutions in the first place is there are too many common problems with people not keeping them, yours truly included. If I had to think about how many years I actually kept and was effective with my New Year's resolutions, the number would probably not be as good as I would like to admit. If we take a look at this first slide here, there's too many people out there, even with the Great Resignation and just people changing jobs, too many people are not passionate about what they do. And that's part of why they're not as excited about their career resolutions, and they tend not to keep them. And just in general, people who keep their career or their New Year's resolutions, it's usually about 50% at best. So our goal is obviously not to be like the woman on the screen here and do a better job of keeping our career and personal resolutions as well. We're going to be focusing on career today, obviously, and talking about how you can create more meaningful goals that you'll actually stick to and be more motivated to achieve over time. Most of you probably know at least a little bit about us. So I'm Hallie Crawford. We've been coaching and training for 23 years. I was fortunate enough to kind of find my passion and purpose in my work life when I was in my late 20s living in Chicago, and brought my business down to Atlanta, which is where we are based now. We just have a great success rate with our clients. We absolutely love what we do, and we've got a stable of great resume and LinkedIn writers and career coaches who help our clients take control of their career, find their dream job, and make it a reality. And today, what we're going to be talking about is how we help our clients in the long run stay satisfied and successful in their career path, because sometimes people will choose the right job, which is great, but then they might get a little bit burned out and they need to figure out how to kind of freshen things up a little bit for themselves, or they may not feel quite as challenged as they did before. So we're going to talk about 3 steps to help you establish career goals that you're actually really motivated and excited to achieve this year. And the 3 things we want to talk about today is defining your career values and how to do that. Identifying inconsistencies, where your career path now may not be matching up with where it needs to be so that it's the right fit for you in the long run. And this is where we'll talk a little bit about our ideal career model that we use with our clients to help them with their long-term strategic career planning. And then finally, we're going to talk about establishing more meaningful goals. So it's not just about establishing the goals that you feel like you should have, or your friend or family member told you you need to have. And it's not just about salary, although that's important too. It's about establishing goals that are attached to your values more and attached to our ideal career model, so that again, you're establishing not just more meaningful goals that are important to you, but also ones that are like the right goals, completing the picture of the model. Okay. So the first thing we wanted to ask you, if you can just put in the Q&A box, what would you say about this poll at the very bottom? I consistently keep my New Year's resolutions. True, false, yes or no. And if you can just go ahead and put that in the Q&A box on the left-hand side, that would be great. We just wanted to kind of poll people and see where you're at. And it's okay to be honest. And like I said, I am also not always the best at keeping my resolutions too, which is why we're here today. So it's okay if you're saying no, because honestly, if this were me, I would say I am not always good at consistently keeping my goals. And it's obviously better when you get support and help with this. And also, like we said, you want them to be meaningful, and we want you to be mindful too of not trying to establish too many career goals this year. 3 or 4, I think, is going to be the max. I'm the type of person that I always overdo it, and I've got like 10 goals, and I don't always achieve them, and that's mentally not the right mindset to have. So it's better to keep it simple too. So that's one of the messages we wanted to get across today as well. So far, we've got a few people. I made easy ones last year, so that's good. I love that. Thanks for being honest. And it's good to make easy ones and kind of overachieve. And then it looks like we've got about 50-50 people who keep their resolutions versus don't. So thanks, guys, for being honest. Really appreciate it. This is the year you're going to stick to it. So a couple of things that we want you to think about when you're thinking about your career goals this year. The first step, as we said earlier, is we want you to be really clear about what your career values are and what they are now post-COVID, so to speak. I know we're not post-COVID completely, obviously, but you know what I mean. It's about how have your values changed, given that we spent so much more time with friends and family, et cetera, and at home this past year plus. What has changed for you in terms of your priorities, okay? And the good news is that we all can have a sense of passion and purpose in our goals. And we want to establish goals, not just that are easy enough to achieve, but also challenging. We also don't want to have too many goals, but we also want to have ones that we're actually excited about. So that needs to be your litmus test with all of your career goals. You need to get excited about them when you're reading through them. The second thing that you need to be careful of when you're defining your career values and your goals for this year is you don't want to be putting goals on your list that you feel like you should have because society tells you to, or you got that message from your boss or whatever it is. We realize that there are some goals you need to have because your employer tells you so. I get that. But if you can find a way to infuse or attach those goals to a value, that would be even better. So the third item on this slide here is kind of this concept of values as our own internal compass that we all have. So let's take a look at this next slide, okay? So basically, we all have this kind of internal compass, which we would say are your values, personal and professional. And our values kind of let us know when we're on the right track with something or not. And if we're off track with our values, we're going to have this sense of like dissonance or losing track of our direction, so to speak. So a compass obviously is used for orientation and direction. And when there's interference with our values or we deviate from our values, things are going to go wrong. So we always want to make sure that our goals and our professional lives, including our personal too, but we're talking about professional today, are aligned with our values as much as possible. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So our values, the way that we define them as coaches is our values provide direction for, and we really want your values to provide the foundation as well for all of your professional goals in some way, shape, or form, okay? And I'd love to do this next poll here while we're doing this. If you can put in here, I have a good sense of my values, yes or true, or I don't have a good sense of my career values, false. That would be great. Love to hear from you guys about where you stand here. The deal with our values, everyone, as you're completing this poll, again in the Q&A there on the left, is our values kind of operate already for us at a subconscious level. Like we're already, to a certain extent, making decisions in our daily lives and in our professional lives according to our values. Now, the goal with what we're talking about today is we want that to not be subconscious anymore. We want you to be making conscious decisions personally and professionally related to your values so that you're honoring them more. Because even though they're operating subconsciously, and we're already kind of making decisions in alignment with them, we can go off track. Sometimes we can over honor our values. Sometimes we can under honor other ones. And we'll end up totally off track with our goals and where we need to be, feeling like, ooh, I need to change my job completely or my career path completely. And it could be just because some of your values are not being honored properly. Okay. So one person says, in terms of our poll and our values, that some of both, that they feel like they're kind of 50-50 in terms of honoring their values. Thanks for being honest about that. And then one person says true, that they do have a good sense of them. That's fantastic. Good for you, Sylvie. And true, but taking longer on the job front. So when we're thinking about defining our values, to reduce kind of that deviation and moving away from our values too much, is we want to attach our goals to our values, and we want you to look at the big picture. So the first exercise that we would have you embark on or do for homework is to start to think about what your values are now, because I guarantee you they may have changed or shifted a little bit due to COVID and everything going on in the world. And the way that we have our clients identify their personal and career values is to think about a personal peak experience in their lives. And we have them think about personal first, because then they'll translate those into the right career values versus just choosing from a list that they should have on their list of career values. And think about that peak experience. It could be a moment in time. It could be a period of time. It could be a trip to Europe. One client told us he was the high school editor of his yearbook, and that was a long time ago for him, but it was a peak experience. And what you want to think about, and journal for about 5 minutes, doesn't have to take that long, but journal and write about what was cool about that personal peak experience for you, and start to think about what values are showing up from that peak experience. You can do this next with a professional peak experience as well. But again, we encourage you to start with your personal peak experience, because you'll get closer to what's true for you and truly fulfilling. Another way to define what your current professional values are what are some of your must-haves in an ideal job? What are things you can't compromise on? And finally, things that frustrate you in terms of your current organization or previous organizations, in terms of your boss maybe, or the culture or coworkers. Those are also possible clues to some values. The opposite of things that frustrate you can give you some clues to some possible professional values that you actually have. So we encourage you all, even if you feel like, I know what my values are already, we think two things. Number one, it's a great idea to reevaluate your values every 6 months at a minimum, and make sure that your strategic career plan is aligned with those values on a regular basis, because they may shift up and down in terms of priority on your list. And number two, we want you to make sure that you can rattle off your values and your professional values to anyone that stopped you on the street, because we want those to be memorized so that you know when you're honoring them and when you are not honoring them. If anyone would like a little bit of extra help with their values, we do have a worksheet listed on the slide here. Just feel free to email us at admin@hollycrawford.com. We can offer you that in addition to the homework we just gave you. So step number two is to identify the inconsistencies. So this is kind of an assessment process, if you will, of where is your current career path or current job not aligning with all of your values, but everything else that it needs to align with in terms of our ideal career model. So this model on this next slide here, and some of you may have seen this if you've worked with us before or coached with us before or attended one of our webinars, honestly. This ideal career model shows you the 8 criteria or pieces, if you will, that you need to incorporate into your long-term strategic career plan. So what you want to say to yourself first, this is how you use this model, is you want to rank yourself for each of the pieces on a scale of 1 to 10, where your career is now in each area. How is it going in terms of being fulfilled? How much is it leveraging your strengths on a regular basis? Are you getting the education and being challenged enough? And are you leveraging your past education in a way that you want to, if at all? Are you leveraging your past experience? And are you gaining the new experiences that you want to? So go through each piece of the model as a good kind of end of the year reflection and assessment of where is your career now. And then as part of that, number 2 would be to write down why you gave each area that number. What's going on? What's going well and what is not going well? Where are the inconsistencies in your current career path that things aren't working out? And that can tell you where you really need to be focusing for this next year in terms of getting your career on the right track, okay? So the last thing we would suggest, in addition to saying with the model, where are you now in each area, the third step would be, where do you want to be in each area? So starting to do a little bit of visualizing and identifying those goals, okay? And again, we would recommend go section by section or piece by piece on the model to identify what your goals would be. Now, a couple of things here. Number 1, you may not have specific goals for each area of the model. You may be really happy with how well your current career path is leveraging your strengths, for example. So you might not need a goal there, or you might just say kind of status quo, and at the end of the year, I'll reevaluate, or I want to make sure that I'm leveraging the current strengths I am in the way that I want to. So we talked about earlier, keeping it simple, 3 or 4 career goals is plenty. You don't have to cover each area of the model. And when you're establishing your goals, what we want you to be doing, as we've already been talking about, is to go through your goals after you've started to identify all of them using the model, and use step number 3 to establish meaningful goals. And here's what we mean by this piece. We want you to attach each of your goals to your career values in some way, shape, or form. Now, how do we do that? For example, if one of your goals is, if we go back to the model here for just a second here, if one of your goals is, I want to make X amount of money, think about not just that, okay, I want to make that much money, but why do I want to? What is it that I want to have in my life that makes that goal that much more meaningful for me? Is it that I want to be able to donate this amount of money to charity? Is it that I want to be able to have a little bit more flexible time to spend time with my family or whatever it is? So while you're establishing your goals, step number 3, after you go through the model, is to attach each of your goals to at least one of your career values so that it's more meaningful to you and you're going to be more motivated by it as part of it as well. And if you have any goals that you've already come up with, for example, or that you come up with later on for your strategic career plan, we also would like you to attach your goals to the ideal career model and make sure, again, that you're going back to that and ensuring that you're covering your bases there. The reason why we say that is because too often, for example, people might create a goal for, I want to make this much money, or I want to get a raise or promotion. And they might say, I'd like to leverage my strengths and skills a little bit more, for example, but they completely forget that they actually need to do something about their work environment that they're in and somehow find ways to make that a little bit better for themselves. And if you don't attach all of your goals to the ideal career model in one of the pieces and do that evaluation, you could miss something that takes you way off track. We have too many clients that will come to us, and at the beginning of our coaching, they will say, oh, I'm so unhappy. I feel like I need to change directions completely and go do something totally different. When 9 times out of 10, they actually need to make more of a course correction, not a huge dramatic change. It's just that they've skipped one of the pieces of the model, and that is really bringing everything else down. So it can be kind of like a sinking ship. If there's one piece of the model that's out of whack, nothing else is going to work right. So you need to consider all of those different pieces. And finally, we want you, after you've established your goals and identified them, to develop a strategic career plan. So we have a strategic career plan template that we use with our clients. And if anyone would like to do a quick one-time paid session with us, we'd be happy to help you kind of get started on that and leverage the template. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet that outlines all of the pieces of the model. and helps you identify which are the right kind of components or pieces you need to be focusing on for this year. We recommend with your strategic career plan, you touch base with it or set a time, an appointment with yourself quarterly to check in with how you're doing with your goals professionally. And it's a good idea to establish all of those goals up front, but be flexible with them. We like people to have a plan for every single quarter, but know that in the back of their minds, depending on what happens, and especially given COVID, we know how things can change so dramatically, that they're prepared to make adjustments and adjust that next quarter if needed, okay? So we talked already about attaching your goals to your values. You also, after you've identified your values, we want you to make sure that you've got action steps and goals related to each of those values. So it's a great idea to have one career goal per value for any given year, okay, for next year specifically. Attach your goals to the ideal career model, like we already said. And we really like it if you want to go a little bit deeper with this. We like our clients to write a quick vision statement for each area of the model. If each area was at a 10 for you, what would that be like? Because this visualizing, in addition to writing things down, can help you stay motivated and excited about your goal as well. And as we said, identify a goal for each of the area of the model as appropriate. And then finally, the strategic career plan, you want all of your goals to be in one place, like in one sheet of paper or on that first tab of your Excel spreadsheet. And make sure that you've got the career model listed there, like in that first section, so that you don't forget any of the pieces of the model, because again, you want to be touching base with that regularly. And then, as we said earlier, you want to keep it simple and distill your list of, sub goals under each of your main goals for the year to 3 per quarter with specific action items for each goal. Again, keep it simple. Don't do too many more than 3 or 4 overarching goals for this coming year total, but then your sub goals for each quarter, you want to keep that simple as well. Before we go for today, we wanted to just quickly remind you that if anyone would like to take advantage of a complimentary career strategy session and you haven't worked with us before through coaching, we'd be happy to chat with you about that. Just email us at admin@hollycrawford.com, or you can sign up for that on our website. As a quick reminder for anyone who joined us a little bit late, everyone will automatically be getting a recording of our session today. So please be on the lookout for that in the next day or so. You can download it from our website. And finally, before we go for today, we want you to think about, again, keeping it simple, and especially since we're, all in kind of the throes of holiday time and New Year coming up, write down, based on being here today, 2 action steps that you will take in the next week or the next 2 weeks. Again, so that you keep it in baby steps, because we know creating a long-term strategic career plan can feel overwhelming. Come up with 2 things. One could be, I'm going to reevaluate my values. Another could be, I want to, use the ideal career model and identify my 2 or 3 goals just to get started and run them by one of Hallie's coaches or a friend or family member or a mentor. So get out your pen and paper before we hang up today and write down 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. And before we go, I just always like to share my favorite quote that reminds me that I need to step out of my comfort zone sometimes and try something new or push myself to achieve the goals that I want. Remember that the greatest risk in life is not taking one. When you're coming up with and establishing your goals for 2022, keep in mind a couple of things: that without risk, there's no reward. So there may be things that we need to do to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone a little bit more. And the other good thing is that it's definitely an employee's market as a result of COVID. Employers are dying for good talent. So you can actually take a little bit more risk, go for more of what you actually want in a dream job than you have before, and you will most likely get closer to it than ever before. And you can ask for more as well, because employers are taking notice. Our clients are telling us that their employers, even people, who are currently employed, and in the right job for them, that their employers are giving them, gave them their bonuses early, et cetera, because they know that people are a little bit more of a flight risk these days. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. We are almost at the half hour. I greatly appreciate you being here, and we hope this was helpful for you. Have a great and happy new year, and good luck with your strategic career planning. Take care.